those cameras.
There is, yeah. Are you familiar with Teardeck at all? Who does really traditional filmmaking, monitoring for just frame stuff at CES, even as soon after all this got innovated as last year. Stuff like that 6 GoPro setup, they have a way with micro HDMIs to feather all of that out, put it into a dock that's going to auto stitch inside of that, and then give you your equator rectangular. And I think actually now you can get a view out into your cell phone. But now stuff like the Samsung Gear 360 just automatically pairs with your cell phone. The new Kodak Orbit 360 pairs with the cell phone. So now a lot of those all-in-ones, if there's not a way to see what you're doing,
Right.
they're not innovating fast enough or well enough.
Anything bigger than a cell phone?
iPad? iPad Pro?
Big iPad.
Okay.
Yeah, real big iPad. That's a good question though, because for the longest time, that did not exist. And it was infuriating to just have no idea what you shot until after you stitched it all together. It's like shooting film.
Gross.
Okay, I have a question about power, because I know when I shoot 360, you run out of juice really, really quickly.
Yes,
Can you
indeed.
talk a little bit about your workflow with batteries? Is it, you have?
Which camera systems are you using, Jenner?
I built a 360 rig with Yi cameras.
Yeah, you
Really
did.
cheap.
Yeah, we have one of those too.
Yeah, they're 2K.
Yeah, no, they're great.
But yeah, the juice is like 30 minutes if you're lucky, so. like, how many
Yeah,
hours
you're
do
just
you
gonna
set?
burn through power. I mean, all of these things, especially whenever you're putting that much technology, even that close together, you deal with a lot of stuff that you don't deal with when you're just using a single camera. Overheating, do you get a whole lot of that? It's brutal when your cameras overheat. You've just either gotta wait or get cool packs on them immediately. But the battery thing is true. I mean, for us, we're shooting a lot of stuff with like the Odyssey camera right now, which just has like a briefcase-sized battery that comes with it. It's preposterous, but power's a really big problem. I mean, GoPros chew through batteries like crazy. If you've shot anything on a GoPro, it's died before you've ever gotten anything worth like editing together. And now you're doing that with 6 of them. We oftentimes, our workflow is just like as simple as it sounds, getting a stinger and a power strip, having a bank of those mini HDMIs that you can plug into, never swapping batteries out. Because you're gonna have to take all those cameras out individually, pop new batteries in. Anytime we're not rolling, shut the cameras off, plug them in. Like, just make sure they're getting juice all the time.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mono versus 3D 360. When do you make the choice? Oh, I'm sorry. Stereo 360. And when
Yeah.
you make the choice, is there, even in the environment itself, if you're in a closed room, is it more accessible to do it in 3D versus in a stadium or a large environment? In other words, when do
Right.
you make the choice for using 3D or not?
So for us, I mean, the question is monoscopic 360 stuff versus stereoscopic. Stereoscopic is just 3D 360. So that only really comes into play when you've got the head-mounted displays. If you've got cardboard or anything with lenses inside of it, the Gear VR viewer, anything that's going to take that pupillary distance, just like your 3D glasses do when you go see Avatar or any of the 17 Avatar movies we'll have coming out in the next 5 years. But the value of having 3D is that if you're really trying to put someone in that experience, it does make it feel like you're there a bit more. The difficulty with it is those rigs are definitely much more cumbersome. If you're buying or renting them, they're a lot more expensive. But shooting on something like the GoPro Odyssey or Jaunt or Facebook's camera that they've been developing, any of those stereoscopic things, it changes the workflow completely because you're going from 3840 to 1920 resolutions. Like the baseline of what we would shoot on the Odyssey is 8192 by 8192. So now it's a post-production problem. So if you're shooting in stereoscopic, you're tripling, quadrupling the amount of data you're pushing through. And if you're doing VFX like we do a whole lot, you're almost doubling up the amount of stuff you have to comp because you're getting in a 4x3 square with both of your things stacked on top of each other. It becomes 4D chess when you start talking about stereoscopic. So a lot of the times we'll offer it. We can provide that service. We've shot a lot of stuff stereoscopically. I haven't really seen in the technology yet for me to go out of my way to champion to anyone that we're working with saying like it has to be done in stereoscopic. Because right now, unless you got a cardboard or a headset that you're going to watch it on, if you're watching it on YouTube, it's not in 3D. It's still just a monoscopic presentation unless you've got the HMD. And we've been doing this for a long time. I watch a ton of 360 videos, and I can't tell you, even as much as I'd like to get up here and say, like, I watch everything in the headset. I watch a ton of 360 videos, and I can't remember the last time I was like, this one's amazing. Let me go grab some cardboard first. Because if I'm just sitting on my phone and I see something pop up on Facebook and it's 360, I'll turn it and full screen it, and usually that magic window kind of point of view. But to really make me go like, oh, well, this is the one that I need to go grab the cardboard and slap it into, I can't imagine a lot of people are doing that already. So for us, it's not a huge point of emphasis, just because it slows down post-production and regular production a ton.
Well, I'll just kick in one more point, that the file sizes when you're working with stereoscopic are astronomically big.
Yeah.
You would start to push the upload cap on YouTube, I think about 6-7 minutes, it's 200 gigabytes. It's just, it can't do it anymore.
Yeah, I was working with Defy recently, and they did a 17-minute Q&A for one of their channels in stereoscopic, and their post supervisor was just like, I don't know why we did this.
Yeah. So the answer sometimes is just because you can doesn't mean you should. But there will be a time when it's easy enough and they get that compression right and it becomes simple enough to where it's not a workflow problem. It's just, that's the tool we have, so we're going to use the right tool for the right job. Yes, right behind.
Yeah, just a question. Have you guys used 360 with a drone, just, a little makeshift way? And what has that experience been?
Certainly interesting. Definitely in the beginning of 360, which I'll hilariously call it because we're still in it.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten out of that stage yet. We've tried everything. And so we've definitely used the multiple camera systems, using stuff like the 3DR Solo or any of the DJI stuff, and just putting the cameras around a drone in a way that we think we're getting enough lens overlap to where we can stitch it all together. Stuff like the Mavic now, that new DJI drone, because it's so small, if we use separate cameras like GoPros or anything else that we can stitch together, we can get those sensors much closer together, and the success rate's like 50-50. It really depends on a lot of different variables, because sometimes we'll get stuff up in the air and it'll look great, and then other times you look at it and you're just like, there's just a gnarly line where those two hemispheres again just like are fighting each other the entire time.
Are you using retractable landing gear?
I'm not the pilot.
Yeah, because the legs are always in the
cameras on.
picture, so.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But with
And
the,
the runners.
so we like basically try to avoid those, like the big Phantoms where they have like
Yeah.
the really big legs there. You can't use those, but we were working with, again with JK Imaging, working on a couple of different mounts for their Kodak cameras, just because they're really kind of versatile. But we found that your gut reaction if you're shooting with two cameras on a drone specifically is to put one on the top of the drone and one on the bottom of the drone. So you're kind of getting all that coverage, and you're hopefully avoiding like the feet and the props and all that stuff that comes with it. The problem with that is when you're watching a video, you want to look out to the horizon. So if you have one on the top and one on the bottom, your stitch line is right where everyone's going to start looking. So the trick kind of became putting it on the front and the back, or side to side, where the skinniest part of the body is. So now the stitch line's kind of up and down, cutting it vertically, and hopefully you're kind of hiding it a bit more. But we've seen, like you pulled up that Tough Mudder video on Facebook where they did the entire thing on a drone.
Yeah,
That was one of
it
the
was,
coolest 360 videos I've seen in a long
Yeah,
time.
it blew us away. It was a CBS Sports Tough Mudder event that they did. It was all drone work and it looked beautiful. They got super close to some of the athletes on a drone. You could tell it was still flying by.
Yeah.
They were playing with frame rate, so it looked super beautiful. And like we were super impressed. So.
That's my favorite 360 stuff to watch. Whenever we like have to huddle around a laptop and try to figure out how somebody else did it, and we can't figure that out. It's like watching a magic trick and no one can sleight of hand and going like, I have no idea. Like, that's straight up magic.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a lot of that stuff, moving the camera in cool, creative ways with drones. I mean, we've done a lot of stuff with rovers, like basically just giant RC cars with stands on them, so you can move the camera around. We've done a ton of stuff moving the camera that way. But drone stuff is really fascinating too. We have a bunch of concepts that if we can get really clean, high resolution drone stuff, I don't want to give stuff away.
Give away our creators.
I get
That's
excited.
proprietary.
I just want to talk
Share,
about
come on, give it
stuff. Sorry. If you figure that out, let me know. Yeah.
I think you can just dismount GoPro Omni rig, for example, cameras with extenders, and mount them to the
Like
drone.
swing it underneath and then.
No,
on
just
top?
dismount GoPros from Omni head and place them surrounding the drone.
Yeah, basically making like a really
Yeah.
big cube of GoPros. Yeah, we tried to do that too. It's,
No.
At that point, it's like.
No, you
the
just
number
dismount
game.
the cube, so you mount
Yeah,
cameras
so the cameras
everywhere.
just get a little farther away
Yeah,
from each
yeah,
other.
yeah.
They're like here. Yeah, as long as you're getting enough overlap from the lenses so you can stitch them together.
Yeah, and you still got Omni head, which will make all the calculations.
Oh, yeah.
We had a question about.
Yeah, how long, or how much footage does a typical day worth the footage take? And then also, I'd like to know how long, each step of the post-production
God.
process takes for you, like, in general. And then, like, if there's, what are the biggest hangups?
Yeah, post is a harder question to answer, but production days in 360 always definitely feel really weird, because one of the most overused like terms is, it's like a one-act play, or it's like going back to the theater, like especially the stuff we were doing earlier where it was all one really long, single take playing out around the camera. So, I mean, generally we were just talking about, say, if we had a day that was from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., let's just say we're doing a 12-hour shoot day. You know, we get there, the first things that we're gonna do whenever we get on set, obviously, block everything out, kind of identify stuff, start to get the dress and stuff done. But before we had the live monitor outs, or if we have a Samsung, you have to know what the picture looks like. So we would just get crew members or stand-ins if we could, or cast if they were cool with it, to block through it all. And then very quickly have somebody go stitch that together, get it into Premiere, start to look at what the stitches are, what the problematic parts are. Then break your actors, go get them in hair and makeup and costume, let them go get a coffee or something while you're continuing to dress everything out. Break for lunch. Now it's noon, 12:30. You get to shoot a real frame of usable footage. If you come from a real
Everybody
filmmaking
starts
background, you're
freaking
going,
out.
oh my God, why haven't we shot anything yet? Then you're blocking everything, because again, if it is like a one-act play, if it is like the theater, you've got to block, you've got to rehearse, because it was that same thing I was joking about earlier. If you're directing it, you do kind of go hide behind a rock somewhere and wish them good luck and yell action. So knowing you got a good take in 360 takes a lot of trust from everyone involved. It's the sound guy listening to the takes and being able to verify, like, yeah, they didn't flub a line. It's asking each of your actors to tell you the truth. Did you feel good about it? I couldn't see what you did.
Yes.
And hoping that they give you a good response. And then once everyone's like, yeah, we absolutely got that one, you go, cool, I kind of believe you, let's do it one more time. This is what you always do. So we're like, first shots up in a day that is 9 to 9, first shots up at like 2:30 or 3 o'clock. But most of the time, you don't get to 9, because if you're using one take and it all plays out around the camera, once you got it, you got it. It's not like you're walking in for insert shots, or, you know, getting the person picking up the notebook or the pen, or doing all that little stuff you do at the end of a regular film shoot. Once you've got it, you got it. Get a clean plate when you're done. One of the biggest things that we do is, once we've wrapped all the human beings, we know we got that take, get everybody out. And if you have different lighting cues, or if you can change the environment at all, get still photos and video of just your environment. Because I do a lot of stuff augmenting the sphere, and then, you know, like removing something from that side. So I need clean plates of the whole sphere. Now a clean plate's not literally the plate, it's everything. I'll do one with the lights off, one with the lights on. If there's a lighting cue or an effect or something, do it with just that, to get all the human bodies out of the way.
Can I
So
ask if
we'll
that's true
end our
with,
day at like
audio
7.
too? Do you do room tone in a different way?
Well, that's
Oof.
what I was just
Yeah,
about to
yeah.
add, because he skipped a step in there, it's okay.
Yeah, we were like all talking.
Before we clear the people out, this is something that I want to ask everybody to do with whatever you're doing. There's absolutely, we all know what recording room tone is, which is just basically that thing I was doing where I was like, everybody be quiet, gotta record on. Because when you're doing cuts between different people's levels, it's super important to just have something that you can lay over the bottom and just smooths out those cuts so you don't hear those weird bumps between people talking. The other thing I want to add, super important, I have to do this every time we shoot a thing, when you're working with just lavalier microphones, there tends to be this kind of thing that's happening, and sometimes even if the performance is great, you get a slight bump and you just can't do anything about it. You have to ADR unless you record something we call wild lines, which is just simply to have your actors stay in the room, keep their mics on, don't touch anything, and just have them do an audio pass really clean of the entire scene. And what you can do is actually take those little syllables, those parts where the mic got bumped, and cut them in, and it's seamless. You don't
Yeah.
notice.
Have them do the radio play version of it before they leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, super important.
Yeah.
But as far as like finishing on the day, I mean, if we get that, we're golden.
Yeah.
And then we're straight into post-production, which has its own fun timeline.
Post I can't answer. We just got out of a hellacious post-process. I don't want to think about editing right now.
I think we can just say that it's time consuming for everybody, because on my end, I'm immediately starting. Taking the edited files, and I'm already starting to build the environment. I create backgrounds, depending on whatever room that we're in. I think about, okay, I need different sounding fans. Like, we just did a big space thing, so that was like, what does a spaceship sound like? No one really knows. So I gotta imagine that. You're just picking different tones, putting in textures. We call them elements, building from there. And as picture goes, we
Color
tend to-
correction.
Yes.
Lots of color.
You have to color correct everything.
Everything.
Takes a long, long time, yeah. So just everything, I mean, like Zeke was saying, for the post-process, that 3 to 4 times rule is pretty much about right. So if you know, like, I know that I can color and time and match a short film, and if it's 5 minutes long, get the entire thing done, polished, 4 days. In 360, it's gonna take me 2 weeks, because I'm power windowing, I'm rotoing, and you're doing, so if someone's walking past a frame, I don't just have to roto that, 20 frames of video it would be in that regular flat video. If they're walking, they never leave. So I'm rotoscoping, all of that stuff. So it just takes a lot of time. Sometimes you just pick and choose your battles.
How much is the post-process changing as far as the monitoring? In other words, early on, all in the headset, depending on what platform you're targeting. But now there's at least 180 projection that potentially can save you some time in the post-process as far as grading that.
I mean, I don't want to step in it. I think we're very used to looking at equirectangular views at this point.
Yeah, we
It's
very
so-
rarely use the headset in post.
Even when I design, it's like I'm using that display grid and I don't throw on the thing until I'm at the end. Because it's time consuming, pop off and on. It's just, and you get used to the way equirectangular looks too. It's not too bad to work with after a while.
I will give the best piece of advice for post-production is, for those of you who have already edited 360 stuff, who's using Metal, Skybox Studio, that is the tool that will save your life in post in 360. So the company is METTLE. I don't get paid by them, but
They are not a sponsor.
said this enough.
Yeah.
Maybe we should. Chris from Metal, I'll send you this video. We're talking about you. Skybox Studio is an amazing set of plugins that works with After Effects and Premiere. We were doing tons of stuff before this plugin set existed. Finished a project, showed it to somebody, who's like, "Oh, cool, you use Metal?" Like, what's that? And it just automates all this stuff. It just does it for you.
All the things you want to do.
And they just released version 2. They have transitions now, because it's weird stuff. Like in a sphere, in the equirectangular, if you want to blur the frame to do a transition, if you use the blur in Premiere, it blurs almost the whole frame, but not the very fine edge around it. There's 2 pixels around the entire frame that it doesn't really blur. So whenever you stitch it and it becomes a sphere, and you're looking at it, there's a huge line. So the guys from Metal just wrote a bunch of code that helps feather all that out, so all their effects work once it's stitched together. It just a lot of drag and drop stuff. It kind of idiot proofs it. Really awesome stuff. Metal. Use that. You get nothing else from tonight. Metal.com.
It's very cheap.
I was really curious about that one short clip that you showed where you had some 2D elements in your 360 space. It seemed like a real cool kind of artsy project. Is that finished, or is there a way to see that?
The portraits with some of that paint stuff. Those I literally was just putting that together on my laptop because I gave it with time to burn.
Okay.
I was like, I wonder if this would work.
No,
And
it was
it
a
turned
neat
out-
idea of bringing in those 2D elements into a 360 spaces for some reason. It looked cool. Metal. Metal.
It's the best tool that's ever existed for 360. Yeah, but that stuff's super fun to play with. Once you realize what you can get away with those tools, it just opens up. Like I say the term 4D chess a lot, because once you're like, okay, well I could do that and then move it here, and then what I could project that way, and you're like, oh no, what have I done? Because now anything's possible.
Weren't we looking at, was it Run the Jewels who put out?
Yeah,
Well, that's very
the
recent.
hip hop group Run the Jewels did something kind of similar where they shot, it was really just on black background shooting individuals with it seemed to be just a regular camera, definitely it looked red quality. It was one super high quality on Facebook, you could look at it. But it was a similar presentation to that where they would just comp in different people and they're singing and they just have a whole bit going, but they definitely did not use a regular spherical camera because the concept and the art and the design behind it didn't need to be that. So knowing that they could just shoot that because they're just going to show the guy walking in from complete darkness, wrapping a couple of lines, turning and leaving, why would you use a camera that limits how much resolution you can use if you're only using 20 degrees of your 360 degrees? So you can just shoot that much, have it take place right there, and then you can shoot on a red weapon in 8K. That's 8K, that's 8K, that's 8K, and then you're not playing this losing resolution game anymore. It's all changing very fast. We just saw that one 5 hours ago, and I was like, this is what I was trying to explain, and then they did it, so now we'll just do something weird.
Yeah, now we'll find something else.
Yeah,
Neon
yeah.
lights.
Yeah.
Hey, man.
Really quickly, apologies if you already answered this, but are you doing your own stitching?
Uh,
With the post house?
At this point, now we've done so much that we're using AutoPano Video Pro and AutoPano Giga. It's by Color, now owned by GoPro. With the cameras that we're using that require us to stitch stuff, we've done it now so much that the templates inside of it kind of just match up with the rigs that we have. So luckily, we did some real
Any tips for just